prosecution of Hillary Clinton or some of these other people. I think he will do something like that. And so for her, her back is against the wall. You know, it's the White House or the big house. For him, his back is also against the wall. He's in this now. He's in this. And the establishment is going to come after him with all their barrels loaded if he doesn't win. So this is really a do or die. You know, they say, you know, if you come after the king, you better get him because you don't get a second chance. So this is, you know, they both got a lot on the line here in this thing. So it's going to be a very, very difficult, very important election. I want to go to Matt in Oklahoma, but before we do, I just want to remind you again that we've extended the Tim Kennedy special. This is the last day. We've extended it one more day. That's 15% off of the products that Tim Kennedy tells us he found most effective in his training for UFC as well as Special Forces. He trains intensively, and he said, when I use Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Secret 12, I can really, really feel a difference. He mentioned that to Alex Jones, and so Alex put together a special. So, all right, we'll put those three out there. We'll offer them people, give them an opportunity to try these products at 15% off, see if they do for them what they did for Tim Kennedy. And, of course, you can read hundreds of five-star reviews at InfoWarsLife.com, people talking about the effect that these products have had, positive effect on them in their life, and we're offering that to you. We extended that for one more day. Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Secret 12, 15% off. That's the Tim Kennedy special at InfoWarsLife.com. Now let's go back to Matt in Oklahoma. Matt, you wanted to make a comment about Trump's speech today. Go ahead.
I did. Hey, Dave, longtime listener, daily watcher. I've also been like you, of kind of, was on the fence about Trump. You know, at the first of the year, if I came forward and said, hey, you're going to like Trump at the end of the year, there's no way I would have believed that. I'm sure you probably felt the same way.
That's right.
But let me get to the points here. Okay, so like you said, it's globalism versus nationalism, which at its core is the individual under attack versus the collective.
Yes.
And what caused that was, like you said, NAFTA. NAFTA was the coffin. The TPP will be the lid they want to nail down on top of America. Now, we want to blame the corporations because they're the ones that, buy out all the politicians. They buy the left and the right and rig the game before the plays are made on the field, and they already know the outcome. But then the people in the stands can say, that guy on the other side, I hate him because he likes this guy. Well, I like that guy. Now they're arguing about the game, and they don't understand who fixed the game before the election. But it goes higher than that, because at the top of this pyramid is the Federal Reserve. We used to be a free nation, and in 1913 we were taken over by foreign bankers, and since then we've not been free. And in fact, to call the left and the right parties is actually incorrect. It should be the Democratic Corporation and the Republic Corporation.
Yes.
But what gets us in this direction is, I was trying to explain this to my brother last night, and he doesn't understand a lot of these things, and he actually came up with a great analogy I wanted to share. Was, the concept of trade is, you used to have a gold coin, you'd go get an IOU note from the bank, and you could go get that gold coin back by giving them the paper back. But what happens if they took that, currency, that piece of paper, and then made a photocopy of it? Then they took the photocopy and put that on top of the photocopy machine and made another copy, and kept taking the copy of the copy and copying it over and over and over, and now you have an explanation for the value of our currency.
That'd be called quantitative easing, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. Indeed.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. And, one of the things people need to understand, too, when we talk about this and we talk about the economic consequences, I think a lot of people don't realize that it was a package deal. When they created the Federal Reserve and they gave them control, they also created the income tax. And they created the income tax at the same time they started opening up and lowering tariffs, opening up our trade, calling it free trade. Okay, so before that, if we go all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, we had a situation where Thomas Jefferson bragged at the beginning of his second administration. He said, we have eliminated all internal taxation. He says, what person in America, what farmer, laborer, mechanic knows a tax man? None of them know a tax man. We support the government, and it was a small government. It was a constitutional-sized government. We support the government strictly based on tariffs, on money coming into the country. And what did that do for us? Okay, that gave us a strong internal self-sufficient government. And what they did when they did exactly the opposite thing when they put together the income tax, created the Federal Reserve, this all scheme of the bankers, and then opened up trade for us. They took down the trade barriers, they took down the tariffs, but then they put internal taxes on us. And we're at the extent right now where, as Donald Trump was pointing out, and he was being mocked in the debates by Marco Rubio, who wouldn't let him finish the sentence, Donald Trump kept saying, hey, they've got all these lines that they've drawn. They don't let competition for insurance companies go from state to state. And Marco Rubio goes, lines, lines. He's talking about lines. He was talking about the fact that we don't even have free trade in health insurance in America. That's how they have locked us down. That's what the crony capitalists, the banking companies, the insurance companies have done. They have destroyed free trade within our country, and yet they have opened it up. Why have they opened it up? Because they want to export jobs. They want to import workers. And so we need to understand that having tariffs is not the end of the world. You know, we always we hear this narrative that, you know, what created the Great Depression was tariffs at the borders. That's not true. And we even see the fear-mongering coming from George Soros saying, hey, you know, once before I got a hold of your currency and I dropped the pound 20% in a day. And I looked at that and I thought, well, you know, that's not really a bad thing, is it? Because one of the key advantages of China is their currency manipulation. And what do? They try to manipulate it to make their currency have an advantage trading with other people. And so if that were to happen, Britain would have an advantage. As a matter of fact, Japan's Abe is doing the same thing. They call it Abenomics. And he's trying to do the same sort of thing, which George Soros said he would do to the UK if they get out as a punishment. I would say, hey, bring it on. That's only going to make exports more affordable coming out of Britain, as well as building an independence and an economy within their country. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of your calls. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to go back to your calls about Donald Trump's speech today in just one moment. Real quickly, I want to break down all these specials we've extended. Again, as I mentioned, the Tim Kennedy special, 15% off Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, and Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. Also, 20% off Deep Cleanse. That's a new special that came out today. We still have the Alexa Pure water filters, 20% off all of the water filters from the largest system down to the shower filter. That's 20% off all Alexa Pure water filters at InfoWarsStore.com. And then there's the Hillary for Prison t-shirt, the t-shirt that sent Slate into fits. They wrote an entire article about a lady that they saw at the rally last Saturday who had been an Obama voter. And she's wearing a Hillary for Prison t-shirt. They flipped out and wrote an entire article about this and said, oh, I can't believe this. The right wing believes that Hillary is a crook. Imagine that. And so Donald Trump defined that today for us as to why she is a crook. But that Hillary for Prison t-shirt you can get for 50% off the first t-shirt, 75% off for the second t-shirt. Send Slate and other people into hissy fits. Get your Hillary for Prison t-shirt now. It's a great time to get a huge discount off the Hillary for Prison. 50% off the first one, 75% off the second one. All right, let's go back to your phone calls. Stephen in Ohio. Stephen, go ahead.
Hey there, David. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I just wanted to talk about what I believe is going to happen here in the near future regarding the elections and having to do with the all these shootings and things, trying to restrict the Second Amendment and things. And also, I think that the shadow government, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg groups, whoever you want to call them, the New World Order, the globalists, will do anything that they can to prevent Donald Trump from winning the presidency, whether that has to do with
I agree.
Assassination.
I agree. We saw that in the Brexit vote. I absolutely agree. They'll pull out all the strings. And that's one of the reasons why I really have come around to supporting Donald Trump. As I said, it's about globalism versus nationalism. And that is a key issue for individual liberty. And it is also the fact that we see how much the establishment of both the Democrats and Republicans hate him. I mean, that is a badge of honor, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And you know what? The reason why they're doing all of this, the reason why, with the 9/11 false flag attacks, all these false flag shootings and stuff, calling for restrictions, to take away the guns and everything, it's because they're scared. They're afraid. They know that we know the truth.
Yes.
And they're afraid that we're going to rise up against them. And I think that the Federal Reserve, the globalists, the big bankers and all of that, I think that they are going to implode the economy and causing upset and discord across the entire U.S. And I think they're going to use this orchestrated plot to invoke martial law and suspend the elections.
Well, I can tell you that if they get these, I can tell you if they get these trade agreements together, they don't really even need martial law to take our economy down, because they will have the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Transatlantic Partnership. They will be able to manage our economy, the world economy, not only ours, but Europe and all these Asian nations. They will be able to manage those economies without any input from the people. These are trade agreements that were written in secret by these multinational corporations. It will establish a committee that is unanswerable to us, and it will be a tyranny that we will not be able to get out of without having a war, and that's for certain. That's why this is such a key election. That's why this issue of nationalism versus globalism is so important, and Donald Trump is the only one to oppose it. Hang on with your calls. We'll take some more calls as we come back in the first 5 minutes. We're going to have Rob Dew talking to someone who was a Venezuelan protester who exposed what was going on in Venezuela and has a lot to say about what happened in the UK with Muslims there as he immigrated from Venezuela. Stay with us for the fourth hour, and Rob Dew as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. Rob Dew is going to be joining us in the next segment. He's going to be hosting the rest of the hour. He's going to be talking to someone who is added to the cyber terrorism list in Venezuela, eventually got out of there, immigrated to the UK, and has much to say about the effects of mass migration and what happened to him in the UK with the Muslims that were coming into the UK. So he's going to be interviewing that person in the fourth hour. I want to try to get through as many of these calls as we can. Let's go to John in Oklahoma. John, go ahead.
Yes, I know that a lot of this Donald Trump is looking at getting from a sort of a top-down perspective, but I'd like to see it get Sheriff Mack back on. That's sort of from a bottom-up perspective. I have kind of some doubts if we can fix this thing from the top down.
Oh, I agree, absolutely.
Bottom up, but we.
And I said from the very, I've said throughout this campaign, when you look at individual liberty, I don't see anybody offering that running at the top. And so I think it's very important for us to keep liberty from getting even more difficult for us. Look, if we lose our country, if we lose even the lip service to the Constitution, we really are messed up, okay, at that point. But I agree that the fight for individual liberty is going to be won at the local level. And I think it's really important to elect the right people as sheriffs. They have a tremendous amount of power. If you get the right sheriff in there, they can do a tremendous amount. Sheriff Mack shut down the Brady Bill. And as we're looking at gun control coming back now, understand that it was the NRA, it was Ronald Reagan, it was George Bush, it was Bill Clinton, all of them pushed through the Brady Bill, and it was Sheriff Mack, a local sheriff in conjunction with other sheriffs, who took it to the Supreme Court and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to shut that down, even over the NRA. So it's very important to get good people at the local level to stand with you and to stand up for their rights. Look, we have a Constitution. We know that they don't obey this Constitution they take an oath to, but they appeal to it for their authority. And we can point to that and say, if you deny this document that you take an oath to when you take your office, then you don't have any legitimate authority. So I absolutely agree with you, John. We need to get very involved at the local level. It's hard for us to do that as a national organization. We pull people in occasionally to talk about that, but that's something that each of you has to do most of your research on your own to find out what's going on, who the individuals are in your area that can help you. We can do that to a limited extent, but it's difficult for us to do that because we have a national and an international broadcast. But that is really, I think, where the rubber is going to meet the road in individual liberty. Thank you, John. Let's go quickly to Margaret in Oklahoma. Go ahead, Margaret.
Hello?
Hey, you're on. Go ahead.
Hello. I think that President Trump is going to have his hands full rooting out corruption in our corrupt justice system. There's a young man in Alaska that the FBI was trying to get him to agree to a plot to murder people, and he said no. And this is Schaefer Cox, and he said no, and it's on tape that he said no. Then the FBI, the jury was not allowed to hear that he said no, and they were not allowed to hear that it was the FBI plot, and so they sent him to prison for 26 years.
Yeah,
that was 5 years ago.
We've seen that a lot, and again, I think that is not something that a President Trump is going to do. Quite honestly, we're going to have to reclaim the understanding of jury nullification, and we're going to have to get that back. And it's a catch-22 because so many people have lost the idea of juries that they will plea bargain. You know, the